Chair Vaughters. The item before you is in District 4. It is a conditional use permit. This would be an expansion of conditional use permit and rezoning previously approved on the subject property, which I'll detail. Total 70.18 acres. It's 1 mile east of Ashland Road. It is split zoned, as you can see, agricultural limited A2, industrial general M2, and the comprehensive plan is for flexible uses. The subject property is outlined in red in the map on the left, and the generally what is called the kind of the northeast end of the county, but essentially the northernmost and easternmost area of the county near Ashland Road. And subject property is outlined in red in the aerial map on the right. We'll note also the distance to Ashland Road travels over the 623 landfill, which is the immediate adjoiner to the west. Luckstone Quarry to the north, the Vulcan Quarry. There's also the Lehigh Asphalt Plant to the north, and going around the clock, residential uses in Henrico County to the east, and down to the south where the Goochland County words are, that is vacant property. The zoning map shows the subject property outlined in red, split between the M2 zoning and the A2 agricultural district zoning. Properties in Henrico County are zoned agricultural A1. The comprehensive plans for Goochland County is for industrial properties around the subject property and its neighbors north and south or for flexible uses, which are defined on the next slide, and in Henrico County for rural residential. All right. Looking at the uses in the aerial photograph, you can see, I'll go around the clock again to the north. Properties are wooded. Immediately to the north, there's a vacant tract approved for expansion of the Luckstone Quarry. Quarries to the north have been operated for 45 plus years. The Vulcan plant, 60 plus years, Luckstone, and the asphalt plant, Lehigh, for 30 plus years. To the east, single-family residential is located in Henrico County. Those are the neighborhoods of Weston Estates, platted 2012 to 2015, and West Ridge, which was platted circa 1977. Properties to the south are mostly vacant. Properties to the west include a construction and demolition landfill known as 623 landfill and leasefill construction for the last 40 plus years. The images on the screen show the property area in 1994 and 2004. And in 1994, you can see Luckstone, Vulcan Quarry, Lehigh Asphalt, and 623 landfill. And again, the subject property in the center. And on the right, same aerial photograph in 2024 with Luckstone, Vulcan Quarry, Lehigh Asphalt, and 623 landfill. The zoning background, the most recent zoning background on this is that in 2011 through 12, there were 3 rezoning and conditional use permit applications that were approved for quarry and accessory uses on the subject property and the abutting properties in yellow. And I'll indicate on this map, everything on the map on the right is from the 2011 cases. There were 3 that were proceeding together. However, it's been annotated with a purple dashed line. So I'm using the purple, we're using the purple here, similar to the purplish boundary around the yellow shape in this image. So that is not, that is annotation on top of the original. The uses that were allowed at the time included borrow pit operations, ancillary stone processing, substantial buffers, a new materials recycling facility, and other activities for quarry and construction and construction and demolition debris landfill. These are outlined in the different colors and relate to the case. The present CU application area outlined with the purple dash line does not impact any of the previous approvals on the abutting properties, with one exception relating to buffers, which we'll speak to in a moment, and would extend the borrow pit into the light green area, which previously was not programmed for any use, which was all limited to the yellow area. 2011 to 12, the proffered buffers shown here are in 2 parts. And you can see the 2 zoning cases that came in together in 2010, number 1 and number 2. No changes to that with this proposal. It's not part of this application to the north, and you can see that's a 350-foot buffer, which could be reduced to 205 feet with a berm, as long as the berm had a minimum height of 35 feet. In the present application, the area to the south, there's a 350-foot buffer, and there was no provision to reduce the buffer width. So that's what's before you today. The applicant submitted this conceptual plan with the application. It requests the following changes for the subject property: that borrow pit activities be supplemented with overburden stockpiles, that the berm be incorporated into, that a berm and berms be incorporated into an overburden stockpile, that the area for overburden placement increases and the area for stone processing expands. There's some graphics that show this in a little greater detail with some arrows on later slides. So the concept of incorporating the berm into the overburden stockpiles outside of the 50-foot buffer of undisturbed vegetation is key to this case being different as basically an expansion of the 2012 concept with an articulated buffer. So the idea in 2012 was that there would be a buffer which would be a minimum of 35 feet height on the northern side, but there was no specification for any kind of buffer or overburden on the southern portion. We can go back and look at that if we need to. In 2024, the diagram on the right shows this in cross-section. So we see a kind of a simple buffer to the north, or on the upper part of the screen in 2012, and a buffer in many parts in 2024. This slide and the following slide have phases 1 through 5, and for simplicity, this slide shows what would begin in phase 1 with a 35-foot minimum buffer to meet the standards to the north that were established by the previous case, through what would be the ultimate build-out if constructed in the 5th phase, phase 5. So the next slide shows phase 1 in construction, phase 2 with backfill behind a berm. So phase 1 would be the construction of the initial berm. Phase 2 would be the berm and the backfilling behind that berm to begin to lay the foundation for a second level, and that terrace would be stepped back away from the property line. Phases 4 and 5 complete the process of going to the top berm. I will note here and then later that the concept of the berming in 2012 and present is to provide an opaque screen, an opaque buffer, in addition to the vegetation that's there presently that would remain undisturbed at 50 feet. It would provide an opaque buffer beyond that, not present, with trees, and it would provide a hard physical separation for the travel of noise. So it would block noise as well through that solid buffer, solid berm.